Now remember, that number one principle here at the gym, the overriding principle behind everything we do, is aliveness. Now, I spent a lot of time trying to go over and explain what aliveness was and what we meant by that in tape 1, but it's still important for me to make sure that you guys understand what I'm saying when I say aliveness. So let's take a look at what I mean by the principle of aliveness. Okay, let's review. Aliveness is made of 3 basic qualities. The first is energy. That means your training partner is giving you some kind of resistance, like an actual opponent would, swinging the stick away a real opponent would swing the stick, as an example. Or in this case, actually resisting an arm lock the way an actual opponent will. That's the kind of energy you want to train against in a street fight. The second quality is timing. It always has to have an intrinsic sense of timing, no matter what you're doing. Classic example is the difference in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu between a really good, say, blue belt and a black belt. The blue belt may know all the same techniques as the black belt, verbatim. They may know everything the black belt knows, but there's still a huge expanse in skill, a huge difference. And that difference is the timing. The black belt's capable of executing his moves with the right timing, when it's appropriate. You only get that kind of timing from rolling around against a resisting opponent. You're not going to get it from practicing drills. You're not going to get it from memorizing locks. You're not going to get it from knowing 40 variations of an arm lock when your opponent only knows 2. You're going to get that feel only from rolling around. It comes from experience and it comes from seasoning. That's the only difference, really, between a real good blue belt and a real good black belt. The third quality is motion. You always have to have motion in anything you're doing. Footwork always needs to be there. When you're hitting somebody, they're going to move. When they're going to hit you, they're going to be moving too. So if you're practicing in a static position, that's not going to help you. Again, I know I covered this in the aliveness tape, but I can't stress this too much. You've always got to have energy, resistance in what you're doing. You always have to have a sense of timing, and you always have to have motion. You've got to be moving around. If what you're doing doesn't incorporate these 3 things, energy, timing, and motion, it will not help you in any way, shape, or form in a fight. It's not going to translate. So you have to make sure you have these qualities, and that's what we mean when I say aliveness. Here's another example of a dead pattern. Go back. This is alive. Robert's no longer cooperating. This is what it might really look like. Right. Wait a minute. Let's go back a second. See, this is a fundamental problem that we ran into as the curriculum at the Straight Blast Gym started to evolve. Since the time of Bruce Lee, we've had a pretty good idea of how to learn how to fight standing up. Okay, you got to put the equipment on and you got to spar. It's basically that simple. You got to work your basic boxing, your low-line kicks. And thanks to people like Hal Faulkner and Paul Vunak, who went around spreading the gospel of Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu before any of the UFCs or any of that to the JKD community, word spread to the wise. And a lot of us have a pretty good idea of how to fight on the ground. You do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. You wrestle. You roll around against a resisting opponent. It's the only way you can do it. However, we still have a problem back here at this reference point. It doesn't get any more dead than this. This is about as close to a static position as you could possibly get. Now, trying to learn how to fight at the clinch range, or as some people call it, trapping range, by memorizing a preset series of responses to a dead or static position like this would be like trying to learn how to do jiu-jitsu, I don't know, lay down, from a static position like here, ready, go. Damn. Where is that reference point? You see what I mean? It doesn't exist. There is no reference point there. Trying to learn how to pass the guard or do jiu-jitsu on the ground using that training method doesn't make any sense. You're never going to learn how to wrestle that way. So then along comes the energy drills. And these were designed to give you a little bit of back and forth, a little bit of energy from your partner at the close quarter. And I actually like some of these drills. And if done correctly, with the right kind of energy, some of them might actually have some kind of application. Okay, the only problem is that in all the fights I've seen and all the fights I've been in, and all the sparring we do at the gym, the movements and responses that we're practicing and we're getting when we're doing the energy drills don't correspond to anything that's happening when we spar. Now, as an example, let's take a lopsal. Okay, basic trapping motion, you'll see, used all the time. I've never, ever, ever seen a lopsal. And I've been in and around fighting and doing this for over 10 years. I've never seen a lopsal. So therein lies the problem. We have a good idea of how to fight and how to train for stand-up fighting. We have a real good idea of how to fight and how to train for the ground. You put the equipment on and you go. But how to fight and how to train at that clinch range, the energy of it, that trapping range, was still a little bit esoteric. We were missing something. You could take a boxer that has, let's say, 20 years of hitting focus mitts, 20 years of hitting the focus mitts and working drills, and I can take another boxer, and in 3 months of working with him in a boxing gym, sparring, I guarantee you he will tear that boxer with the 20 years of drills on focus mitts up, because he's got the timing. You could take a Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. Take Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu as an art. You could teach a guy Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu drills, and for 30 years he could practice those drills. Drill arm locks, drill triangles. Never actually wrestling against a resisting opponent, but always practicing drills for 30 years. And I guarantee you in 3 months, rolling around with a guy on the ground, actually just wrestling with him, he will tear that guy up with 30 years of drills. And you could take somebody and you could work 3 months of actual fighting at the clinch range, sparring, takedowns, putting in some knees, putting in some elbows, and you can take another guy with 20 years of chi sao and all the other energy drills, quote-unquote energy drills there are. The guy with 3 months of actual sparring at that range will tear him up, and that's just the truth. You know, the drills aren't what's going to make you better. You only get the timing when you actually apply what you're doing against a resisting opponent.